Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and this is the show. This is the place. And I'm so glad to see so many of you guys coming in right away. This is awesome. And I've been having some epic turnouts lately, and thank you all for that and for spreading the word and letting more people know about the shows, because honestly, we've grown by grassroots, by word of mouth, ever since the very beginning. And while the Paranormal Portal has never exploded, like just become a huge show, it's becoming bigger and bigger. And the way it's grown, I'm really thrilled with, because it means the shows mean enough to you guys to let other people know about it. And that's the best kind of endorsement I could ever hope for, is that you guys feel it's worth sharing. So thank you so much for that. If you want to share these shows to your social media, that's a huge way to help. And if you're new and you're watching on YouTube, get subscribed. If you're not already, we'd love to have you become a part of the family and check out more of this stuff. And also, don't forget about the Paranormal Portal podcast, which is out on the interwebs on all of the major platforms: Pandora, iHeart, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Castbox, and a bunch, and so many more. I don't know the names for all of them, but just look for Paranormal Portal out there and you'll find it. So wherever you get your podcasts, we should be there. If you're ever on a podcast platform that doesn't have us, let me know, because I will make sure that we get there too. We just want to take over the world slowly, maybe. That's not really true. That's never been my motivation, but it is a blast, and I'm honored to be able to do this. And I'm even more honored that there are those of you out there that like to hang out with me as I do this, no matter which show, either here on YouTube or the podcast. And by the way, the podcast is a totally different show than this, although sometimes, very rarely, but we do take YouTube episodes and port them over to the podcast. Just if there's good interviews or a lot of good material, it's a lot of fun to do that. So it's another option. Anyway, but welcome to the show. We've got a bunch of things to get through here tonight. It's just me and you guys. So you guys are my co-host tonight. You'll have to help me through the evening. Remember, if you're in the chat on YouTube or on TFR, it's harder for me to see TFR just because I have so many screens of things going on, and I've got several interfaces open that I have to keep an eye on when I'm doing these shows. So I'll do my best to keep on the chats as much as I can, but if you're on YouTube, at least capitalize all the letters. That helps me to see it better. But the best way is to do the @ sign, which is shift number 2, and then the words Paranormal Portal after it, and that'll give me a nice big orange box around the word, and it helps to draw my attention to it. So if you want to participate in the conversation, you can certainly do that. Otherwise, you can also call in. The number for the show is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. And for those of you on YouTube, again, it's right below my name down here on this bar. You'll see the phone number in the white bar underneath there. So special thanks to Wes Germer for making that for me. That is so epic. It's just really cool. I'm extraordinarily gifted and not gifted, but extraordinarily blessed, rather, to have so many wonderful friends that go out of their way to help me. And that's certainly one of them. And all of you guys out there in your own ways, like Taco made this sign back here. One of our regular listeners on YouTube made this metal sign that's illuminated right there on the screen. You guys have all contributed so much, and so thank you for that. All of you, the unknown, that Paranormal Portal that comes down with the tentacles and shadows, that was the unknown that did that. Another regular listener. So just some really cool contributions. Thank you so much. But one of the best ways you can contribute, of course, if you're on YouTube, is like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, all that stuff. And if you're not watching during a live show, leave a comment. That helps a bunch too. So enough of the laundry list. Android says, tell Sheldon he needs to get his butt back on here. And here's the thing. Sheldon would love to be here. He really would. However, he's currently taken a job that makes this his work time. So he's not home. He's not able to. So he really can't wait to get back and be a part of this again. But for now, this is what he's doing and when he's doing it. So it's just kind of real world. Sometimes real world gets in the way of these kind of things. And so we'll just keep his seat warm for when he can get back here. He's always, of course, got a place place to take part in when he's able to. So, but thank you, Android. I appreciate that. He'll be thrilled to hear that. All right, so we got a bunch of stuff to get to, but before I go any further, let me just thank tonight's, one of the sponsors of the Paranormal Portal, Cryptid Coin. And if you're looking for a new cryptocurrency investment, this may be the one for you. And I'm tickled about this one because its heart is in the center of cryptid research and investigation. And if you want to know more about Cryptid Coin, go to cryptidcoin.io. It's a really cool opportunity. I think I'm not an advisor. I can't give you any advice whether or not it's a great investment, but I think it is. Personally, that's my own personal uneducated opinion, but I'm just really thrilled that they decided to be a sponsor of the show, and special thank you to Cryptid Coin for being a part of this. And again, cryptidcoin.io. It's also available on PancakeSwap, so check it out if you're looking for something to possibly look at for a cryptocurrency investment. So anyway, thank you to them. I appreciate that a bunch. So we got a bunch of stuff to get to, as I was saying, and I guess the first place we'll start is the place we always start on these nights, and that is the news. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal News Desk. Oops, wrong button. Don's not here. It's just me again. This is the news desk, and I'll be your news anchor for tonight. And I've got a bunch of curated articles for us to go through here on the newscast, and I hope you guys enjoy them. Some of them are new, but most of them are from the archives again, but there's a couple new ones here that I thought would be fun to go over. So let's get started here. Let me just make sure. No, this one's good. This is the first one tonight is a brand new one, or newer anyway, within the last several days. But this is coming from unexplained-mysteries.com. It's a great site, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for a fantastic site with some really cool news articles, both paranormal, bizarre, UFO, and also archaeology, science, news, the works. Check out unexplained-mysteries.com. It's just a real great site, and I really encourage you guys to check them out because I think it's important to support these sites that we use on the show because they're doing a phenomenal job, and the more visits they get, the more it helps to fund what they're doing over there. So definitely support them. Head over to unexplained-mysteries.com and check them out. The first article tonight is apparently some research down in Antarctica has found some interesting things, and this is from the science and technology section. It's swarm of creatures found deep beneath the Antarctic ice. Scientists have discovered a hidden ecosystem deep down beneath the ice of Antarctica's Larsen Ice Shelf. This fascinating hidden world, which is situated 1,600 feet beneath the ice, was discovered when researchers spotted an unusual groove in the ice shelf on satellite photographs. Upon closer inspection, they found that this was indicative of a subsurface river. When they drilled down into the ice to investigate, at first their camera seemed to be obscured by hundreds of strange blurry flecks. Upon focusing, however, they realized that these were in fact hundreds of small shrimp-like creatures that were swarming the lens. Their presence is unexpected as there was not thought to be any life at all at such a depth. Having all these animals swimming around our camera means there's clearly an important ecosystem process happening here, said oceanographer Craig Stevens. Scientists had long suspected that there was a network of subsurface rivers and lakes beneath the ice, and this latest discovery not only confirms this, but also opens up the door to the possibility of other ecosystems hidden hundreds of feet beneath the surface. So what's going on under Antarctica? Now, there is those that believe, and perhaps this is based on science fact, I don't pretend to know, but there are those that believe that Antarctica at one time was a tropical land. It was a tropical body of land. And I'm not sure if it was a polar shift that happened eons ago or whatever, and suddenly it's buried under ice. But if there was a tropical land there, then I imagine there would be a pretty diverse possibility of there being, life, because I think whereas a sudden shift to cold may end up shocking most of that life and wiping it out, I think some would be able to adapt with it, and perhaps they'll be finding more and more. Now, these little shrimp things are funny, and I I have a personal anecdote to share about this because I don't know if I'm sure several of you out there are familiar with this, but where I lived was a floodplain when I grew up. It was down in Minnesota along the Mississippi River, and the water would come up, but it wouldn't always break the bank. So like the water would come up in these pockets of lower areas of land. It would seep up through as the river levels grew every spring. And when that happened, there would be these ducks would be coming back there, and there would be all kinds of like animals coming back to hang out in the floodwaters. And when we were little, I used to canoe back in those areas, and my brothers and I would get in boats and row around in these areas around our house. And we found these little, it almost looked like bugs, but they weren't bugs. And what we ended up finding out is those were brine shrimp. Now, that land is dry most of the time, but in the spring it may get damp. It may actually, the water may come up enough, but it seems like those eggs would lay dormant in that earth until the waters would come up, and then they would hatch, and then there would be full of brine shrimp back there, which the ducks would come and eat, and many other animals would come and eat. And I imagine it could be something like that, but I'm just guessing in the case of this Antarctic thing that maybe those kind of eggs or spores or whatever are really regularly found all over the face of the earth. And it's possible, because I know there are some types of fish that can apparently hibernate in mud for years, on arid plains and stuff that don't see a lot of water. Well, when the waters do come, they kind of break out of their cocoon and swim, in the waterways that form. And then when the waters recede again, they'll go back into that hibernative state. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing. It seems that Jurassic Park was right on when they said life will find a way. So I think this is interesting. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. You got to understand, it's a different place inside my head. So sometimes the things I find extraordinarily interesting, other people are like, are you serious? But, it's my show, so you get to deal with my whims. But that's the first article up on the deck tonight. Let's get to some more. Hopefully more entertaining than that, but I thought that was interesting. So the next one up is also from unexplained-mysteries.com, and this is, this one is, I don't know, it's about UFOs. Should be better suited to the show. Let me close this. I'm not sure what this is. I can't even close it. It's locked in place. All right, this is from unexplained-mysteries.com. Canada and U.S. to share data on UFOs and nuclear security. Well, there you have it. You mean they weren't before? Are we to believe that we weren't talking about UFOs to Canada before? Well, anyway, the move aims to mitigate any potential threat posed by UAPs to nuclear facilities across the continent. Over the years, we've heard numerous testimonies from individuals working at nuclear facilities in the United States regarding UFOs being sighted over and even negatively impacting ICBMs, which I think is fantastic. UFOs are coming over and negatively impacting ICBMs. That means they turned them off. And I don't know if that's a negative impact. I think that nobody needs ICBMs. But anyway, prompting concerns over ongoing safety and security of the country's nuclear deterrent. Now, in a renewed effort to mitigate any risks that these objects may pose, officials in Canada have agreed to share information on UAPs with their U.S. counterparts in the interest of nuclear security. This cooperation was outlined recently in a pair of letters published online from Canada's Natural Resources Department and the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, CNSC. Given the shared priority for nuclear safety and the security of nuclear facilities, and the growing interest in UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, in both Canada and the United States, the CNSC has committed to raising the issue with its United States counterpart in sharing any related information going forward, Deputy Minister of Natural Resources John Hannaford wrote in one of the letters. We've reached out to our counterparts in the United States Department of Energy regarding the Office of the Director of National Intelligence's preliminary report on UAPs to learn more about its perspective in order to help inform analysis and action in Canada. You can read both letters in full in the tweets below, and they're right there. Again, I'm sure you can find them on Twitter or a quick Google search. Here's the thing. Again, if these things are there, I believe they are. If they are truly there, what are they going to do? I mean, they're not going to committee these things to death. They are so much more advanced than we are. What are you going to do? I don't understand. It seems like they're posturing for funding, for money. I don't know. It's very strange. When you're looking at technologies that are so far advanced to our own, what are we going to committee about? If they want to shut off our stuff, they're going to do it. So I don't know. It just seems to be a lot of posturing. But then again, there are those that believe that there's false things being planned in order to propagate fear. So who knows? It's anybody's guess. But I think this kind of stuff is more an exercise in bureaucracy and possibly keeping energy or information from flowing in the interest of quote unquote national security. So I don't know. You be the judge. I'm just sharing what I'm seeing here. I don't know. It's kind of frustrating. But anyway, I think if they're here, if they wanted to, they would already have done whatever they wanted to do. Why are they waiting? They don't need to. They could do whatever they want anyway. So I don't think they're here to put us back in the Stone Age. I just don't. But anyway, I guess we always need a bad guy. And so maybe those are the most convenient bad guys right now, or potential bad guys, as the case may be. All right, let's get to the next one. This is from unexplained-mysteries.com. And in the interest of former presidencies, this is apparently Bill Clinton is still trying to remain relevant as well, because he's still doing the talk show circuit, and he appeared recently on one. And according to unexplained-mysteries.com, Bill Clinton talks about UFOs in Late Show interview. It's from June 17th of this year. The former president of the United States briefly touched upon the phenomenon and its possibilities of alien life. If there's one group of people who should know more than most about the U.S. government's investigations into the UFO phenomena, it's those who once made the White House their home. Several former presidents have commented on the topic over the years, and now Bill Clinton, who sat in office between 1993 and 2001, has become the latest to offer his views. During an appearance on The Late Show with James Corden on Wednesday, he suggested in tongue-in-cheek fashion that he had looked into the subject while he was president. We have made every attempt to find out about Roswell, and we also sent people to Area 51 to make sure there were no aliens, he said. When Corden asked him who he had sent, Clinton quipped, "Oh, if I told you that." Also, during the interview, Clinton recalled paying a visit to a telescope in Hawaii, where he spoke to an international team of researchers who had been working there. He said that he had asked them about the likelihood of there being alien life in the universe, to which the scientists suggested there was an 85 to 95% chance of this being true. You can check out the clip from the interview below. Now, I think when scientists are posed those questions, is there possibly alien life? Well, that could mean plant life. It could mean microbial life. They're not speaking on intelligent civilizations when they make those kind of assessments. But even though, I mean, it would still, in my mind, hold true that there's probably a lot of intelligent civilizations out there. But I think that most scientists, when they're asked such things, are responding mostly to the idea that is there some form of life out there. It's like, well, yeah, more than likely. So I don't think that's a big stretch to the scientific fabric there. But anyway, it's another story. All right, we're going to go into the archives now as we're heading back into 2012. And I don't know, some of you out there, maybe when you were young, you had one of these. I know we had one when I was a kid, and it's a metal detector. We didn't find much more than nails and bottle caps and old cans and stuff whenever we went out and digging around. But this kid found a whole bunch more in 2012. And this is from unexplained-mysteries.com. Schoolboy finds bomb with metal detector. Oof. Sonny Cater found more than he bargained for when he took his metal detector to a field near his home. Using nothing more than a 30-pound National Geographic metal detector he'd received as a Christmas present, Sonny'd been exploring fields near to where he lived when when the device started to beep. Digging in the ground, he uncovered a mud-caked metal capsule, which he took back home and watched to see what it was. His parents soon became suspicious, however, when the initial innocuous device revealed itself to be disconcertingly bomb-shaped. Shortly afterwards, the police and a bomb disposal unit had been called to the house, and it turned out what Sonny had discovered was an old World War I practice bomb. "We were dumbfounded that he discovered this on a first go," said his mother. "It was caked in mud, and Jem just thought it was a lump of metal and took it home. Fortunately, it was determined that the device did not pose a risk, and it was later disposed of safely by the authorities." Well, there you go. You don't want your kid bringing home bombs, but it's a practice bomb. I don't know what a practice bomb means. Does that mean it looks like a bomb and it doesn't blow up, or does it blow up but it doesn't really do a lot of damage kind of thing? Well, I don't know. But in any case, not what you want your kid digging out up in the yard. That's creepy. All right, the next one up in our newscast tonight. I got to look at the time and see how we're doing. I've been gum running for a while. I got 4 minutes left. Only got time for about one more here. Jeez. Time flies when you're in the news. The next one up is from unexplained-mysteries.com. This is pretty tragic but unusual. I don't know what the odds of this happening are, but according to unexplained-mysteries.com, in December 22nd, 2012, man found dead standing up in his kitchen. I don't know how you pull that off. Authorities investigate the strange case of a man who was discovered dead in a standing up position. An unnamed friend of 35-year-old Andrew Evans had gone to visit him at his house when he noticed him through the window standing up in his kitchen. Calling to him but receiving no response, his friend went inside and found that he was dead. Evans had seemingly blacked out while reaching up to fetch something down from a cupboard and had remained locked in that position. Wow. An investigation of what had happened later revealed that Evans had injured his head prior to his death, but due to excessive alcohol consumption, he had not been aware of it, and the coroner recorded a verdict of accidental death, but noted that the case was bizarre. Yeah, you'd think the body would just go limp and, noodle to the ground. I don't know. What are the odds of that happening? Well, it can't be good. Whatever the case, but that guy actually died on his feet and stayed there. Is that as strange as it sounds? Yeah, I think it is. Wow. Huh. All right, what do we got for time? I know we're getting right down there. 2 minutes. Wow. Where does the time go, folks? God, do I have time to read this? Yes, I do. This is one I wanted to read because it talks. Oftentimes we don't know what's going on behind the Iron Curtain up there in North Korea, but apparently there's all kinds of magic and wonder up there because according to unexplained-mysteries.com, unicorn layer claim surfaces in North Korea. The country has attracted attention again yet this week, and again, this is 2012, with a rather strange claim from archaeologists. North Korea is no stranger to bizarre claims, but this one might take the cake. The official state news agency has announced that a unicorn lair has been found in Pyongyang and that it would have once been used by the king to house several of the mythical animals. According to reports, the discovery was made when archaeologists came across a rock with the words unicorn lair inscribed on it. Yeah, boy, they must have been trained well there. It said unicorn layer on it, so that's what must have been there. The announcement might not be quite what it seems, however. There is a speculation that this could be a response to a recent satirical article published in The Onion that proclaimed Kim Jong-un as the sexiest man alive. Could North Korea be responding in kind with its own piece of satire, or is there another explanation for the origins of this bizarre discovery? When I think of North Korea, I don't think of their satire. I don't know if they have satire there. I don't think it's legal, but I might be wrong. I'm not an expert on North Korea, but I'm just saying it doesn't seem likely to me. But in any case, could there be unicorn layers at one time in North Korea? I don't think so. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say probably not, but I'd be curious what your guys' take on this is. But anyway, that's the news. Let's get back to it. Unicorn lair. Why not? Right next to the fairy garden. Sure. What is it, the Renaissance Festival up there or what? I'm not sure what's going on. They dug it up and it said unicorn lair on it. So obviously there was unicorns there. All right, folks. Well, this is the break. It's break time, so we'll be right back in just a couple minutes. Don't go away for more of the Paranormal Portal. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We are back at it here on the Paranormal Portal. If you're new to the show, like you just happen to find it, like, oh, this is live, let's check it out. Oh, what the hell? There's commercials. Well, the reason why, and I like to explain this because I will definitely get comments in the YouTube like, hey, what's with the breaks? And the breaks are because we are actually simulcasting. We're not only broadcasting on YouTube, but we're also broadcasting on TFR Live, which is the very first home of the Paranormal Portal. Actually, before we were a YouTube show, we were on TFR Live. So we continue to broadcast over there as well on Friday and Saturday nights. And they are broadcasting on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. So there's got to be commercials in there. And so rather than make you guys on YouTube listen to commercials, I put together those little video vignettes or whatever. So as it were, that's why, just so you know, it's not because I'm too lazy to do a full 2-hour show. It's just I got to stay in sync. Got to keep everything in sync. So that's what the reasoning is. I apologize, but if you're watching this after the fact, just know you can always click ahead. You don't have to watch those little breaks. Just wait till you see my face again, and well, it's live. The break is over. So anyway, that's all there is to it. Let's see. I just want to say hello to everybody here. Thank you for coming in. It's great to see all the friendly faces and new faces. Hi, Kirsten. How you doing? So I'm going to do some shout outs here quick because I want to see who's here. I'm looking over at YouTube, and so far it's Bam and Gemini are over there. How you guys doing? Good to see you. Looks like Cindy Wu was over there. Let's get to the YouTubes and find out who's here. If you want to shout out on YouTube, you gotta chat something because it's by active chatting that the shout outs happen. So type something and it'll help refresh the list. But so far, I have Aggravated Progressive is here. Android Purity. Brooks is here. D Ocean is here. Deb Varner. How you doing, Miss Deb? Good to see you. Good to see all of you, of course. Elaine Clifford is here. Ghost Magnet is here. Kevin, rather. WIPF. Jim Gwynn just came in. Popped the list down. Where am I at? Kirsten, Leah. How you doing, Kirsten? Good to see you. Maggie M10. How you doing, Maggie? Rachel gets it right. Ron the Sage, Ruger Ridge, the fourth color, yeah, and Tracy Gale. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm sure Portal Mom's out there listening as well. Lori Barnes just popped up. How you doing, Lori? Ron the Sage, I said already. Okay, I'm just seeing if I missed anything else. Looks like that's the most updated list that I have. So if I missed your name, I do apologize, but great to see you. It's always wonderful. Always wonderful. So we got a bunch more of the paranormal fun to get through here tonight. I do want to make sure to get through some Phantoms and Monsters. I've been teasing it for the last 2 shows, but then, and I love when you guys call in. So first and foremost, just know if you have something to say or you want to contribute to the conversation in some way or share something paranormal that happened to you, feel free to call in. That's my first love of doing the shows, is hearing from you guys directly. But I always do pull up material just in case we don't get many calls in, because sometimes we get a bunch, sometimes we don't get many. It's just the nature of the beast, as it were. But there's an article here that I wanted to touch on, and we will get to the Phantoms and Monsters, as well as a couple excerpts from Sasquatch Chronicles blog tonight as well. Probably in the second hour, we'll go through those and anything more. And we may actually have some time to go through the BFRO. So if you are interested in some BFRO reports, we're going to go through those. Maybe later in the show, we'll see how we do for time. But first and foremost, if you want to call in, by all means. Otherwise, if you're not much into calling in, but you'd like to talk to me or share something that happened to you, you can always email as well. paranormalportalradio@gmail.com is the email address. Again, paranormalportalradio, that's all one word, at gmail.com. So love to hear from you. And here's an article from Quora, QUORA.com. And it's an interesting site, Quora. I've been looking at it for years, and it's one of those sites where you can just, it's almost like a Reddit in and of itself, but people ask questions and other people answer them and tell of their experiences. And the question thread that I thought was pretty cool that we would start talking about tonight was, have you ever had an experience that made you believe in Bigfoot? And I thought, wow, that sounds like a good article. So let's change screens here. And I'm going to have to fish through this because there's some things that look like good contribution and other trash. So we're going to have to kind of whittle our way through it. Not trash in the sense that people are trying to be jerks, but some people are being jerks on there. Other people are like, there's no such thing as Bigfoot. And, we're not going to waste our time with those things tonight. This show is not about making somebody believe or, trying to convince people to believe, but we do look at things from a believer's perspective, just to put it all on the cover there. There's not any kind of hidden agendas. We do believe. Usually you're listening to the show because you're at least curious about this stuff, and you may believe, but I'm only going to share things from people that have had experiences. And so let's get to that, but let me do this first. And I got to do this next and this next. Okay. So there we go. I got the chat still on the screen here. Let me move that over a little bit. There we go. All right. So this is the article, ladies and gentlemen, from Quora.com. And let's see. All right. So the first one is coming from Michael Fetterman. He's according to the posting, former zookeeper, lecturer, manager, Catskill location at Clyde Peeling's Reptile Land in 1987 to 2006. And he's an author. I think that means he's a Quora author, but maybe not. So this person sounds like they got a hell of a pedigree anyway. So this person says, yes, as a child in Pennsylvania, I remember fainting at the sight of something large, furry, and black on the edge of the woods while running on a trail from a friend's house, racing my sisters, who picked me up a minute later. But that could have been a bear. I moved to the Olympic Peninsula last fall, and after Thanksgiving, maybe early December, around 4 a.m. one morning, our Labrador was whining, so I got up and put my shoes on and let him out. He ran out about 3 steps, stopped, and his tail went between his legs. He turned and jumped into the house, whining again. I could hear the dogs on this one road, limited developments, to hear just beach on one side, mountains on the other, with one small highway between, going crazy outside. I walked out into our driveway, being new and curious and eager to check out the neighborhood, trees and trees and trees, and I was listening with my eyes closed, thinking, beagle, then in the mix, hound, shepherd. I was feeling like I was using echolocation because it was so dark. I couldn't see more than just our cars and see the corner of the house. Then I heard a gorilla bark that shook the ground, and it came from the opposite direction behind me. I've worked with crocodiles and alligators up to 15 or 13 feet and nearly a ton, and I've worked with king cobras and been bitten by a cobra. I've camped at the Serengeti and had lions brush up against me in the night through my tent. I stared down a dozen hippos from about 20 feet in, I don't know how to say this, Mzima Springs in Kenya. I've been bitten by a Gila monster, dragged down the road by a horse on my head, insert joke here, kicked by emus, pecked by herons, mauled by prairie dogs on live TV, squeezed by pythons, bitten by rattlesnakes, swam with alligators, and even picked up a kitten, but this time I was scared. I know that sound was not a person, way too loud, was not a bear, cougar, elk, deer, or raven rather. Nor was it a piece of machinery running in the quarry in the middle of the night. It was something big, cutting through the quarry, coming from the beach, heading to the mountains before dawn. I don't know what it was because I slowly walked back inside, looked out the window into the blackness, and I have since gotten braver and heard more suspicious sounds, but nothing as obvious as that night. I'm pretty sure we will find that a few small troops of man-ape species from the Ice Age still inhabit some nooks and crannies of the Northwest. That's pretty interesting. And is that an accurate, honest depiction? I don't know. And we can't know, but if this guy is truthful about what he experienced and he's truthful about his experiences, then it sounds like he definitely had an experience. Let's see. Oh, this one. I don't want to read this one because this is more of a I don't know, kind of, this is why you should believe in Bigfoot based on all this other stuff. I think this one was one. Again, let's see. All right, it says, have you ever... No, this was supernatural, sorry. I'm looking for the Bigfoot ones. Yeah, this is the problem with this, is these threads are so polluted with a lot of stuff, and I don't know if they're moderated at all, or if you met a serial killer, where does he hide? Oh, this isn't the one then. Hold on, I'm gonna pull up a different article here. It's another version of the same page, but it had some better accounts, and I'm gonna pull that over, and we're gonna look at that instead, because I know there were some good ones here. Okay. Let's see, that was the zookeeper one. Yeah, okay, so this is one that I wanted to go through, and this was by a person going by the name Joey Anderson. Claims he's a cinematographer at Joey Anderson Productions from 1993 until now. Apparently this was submitted 4 years ago. Have you ever seen Bigfoot? Let me blow this up a little bit because it's nearly a micro font at this point. There we go. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot? Well, although I know the answer that ramble on and get the most engagement here, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Not even kidding. It was 1979, but I think it was 1979 on a weekend camping trip with my family. I was 8 years old, and it was a fairly chilly night, and I had started getting a severe cold. My mom decided it would be best for me to sleep in the back of the station wagon instead of the tent with her and my stepdad and my little brother. My uncle and aunt were asleep in another tent next to theirs. If you're old enough to remember them, it was like the old station wagon in those old Chevy Chase movies with fake wood paneling striped down the side. So my mom put me in the back of the station wagon and wrapped me up snugly in a few blankets. I didn't like being alone in the car, but they left the fire going and the moonlight shone into the car pretty strongly. I wasn't asleep, but I was curled up with my eyes closed. I noticed it suddenly got pitch black. Before that, it seemed that somehow I could tell there was moonlight, even though my eyelids even through my eyelids rather. I opened my eyes and saw him through the window I was facing. I literally could have touched him, except I was inside the car and he was less than 3 feet from me. At first, all I saw were the legs and a very gross butt. His butt was at the top of the car window, and then he turned more to the side and I saw his genitalia. Very much human, but hung like a bull. I call him a he because that part was very obvious. His hair was very, very dirty and slightly wet. Maybe very sweaty, and didn't look at all like fur, really. It was a reddish-brown color with lots of gray. Skin that, and I could see on his butt and genitalia was sort of the complexion of a Native American, but very hairy. The hair was long in areas, like the head and shoulders, and arms and even hands in mid-length in others. Honestly, I was terrified and grossed out, but still wasn't sure what I was seeing. As he took a couple of steps away from the car and towards the tents, I was horrified and trying not to even breathe. What I saw was the largest man-like creature ever moving towards the fire and the tents where my family was. I was afraid they were going to die. I could see him completely at this point. Huge. I was only 8, so I can't say how tall, but I'm 45 now, and based on what I know about the height of my family, and how they looked to me when standing about where he was, near the fire, and based on the height of those station wagon, he was probably at least 9 feet tall. He was very muscular, extremely thick, but lean like an athlete. He seems to not have much of a neck, if any, based on the front of his head and profile view, but he did have long hair well past his very wide shoulders. He stood there looking at either the campfire or the tents, or both, for what seemed like eternity, but it was probably only seconds. He took a couple of steps and was gone. I've told very few people about this for fear of being labeled a tall tale. I know what I saw is what people call Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I'm certain of it. Have you ever seen one? I'd love to hear about it, if only to make me feel a little more sane. Yeah, that's got to be really creepy. And again, this is an 8-year-old. This is an 8-year-old kid. I just can't imagine he was alone in that station wagon and confronted with this horrible sight. And granted, the thing didn't do anything aggressive at all. Didn't make any motion to harm anybody or to do anything. It was just there watching. And is that a measure of it hunting? Is it a measure of it just curious, watching what people are doing? Is it akin to looking in the window and watching the TVs and stuff? I don't know. That's the scary part of it, I guess, is because you just don't know. Again, I don't think these things go out of their way to be harmful or hurtful or to hunt people, because if they did, there'd be a hell of a lot more missing people. But I think that, sadly enough, I think that they probably have that same behavioral dimension that people have. There's good people and there's bad people. So maybe there's bad Sasquatch or something like that, or there's types of Sasquatch that are bad. Some people talk about a googway, and that's like I don't remember the types, what they mean, but it's like a 3 or type 3 Bigfoot, where they're considered to have a snout, like the Beasts of Seven Shoots, which is a picture of something that looks almost like a baboon, but it's like humanoid looking, not so much baboon looking, but the head really does reminisce of a baboon without all the bright colors. But whatever the case is, I don't pretend to know, but I think that there is enough biodiversity and emotional diversity in these things that there could be psychopath Bigfoot, just like there could be psychopath people. And perhaps if they get injured, maybe if they get injured and they're facing starvation, then you go after the low-hanging fruit. You maybe can't run down an elk anymore or a deer, but you can still catch people. So maybe it's one of those situations, and I don't pretend to know, but it's very, very curious. Paranormal Portal, or maybe rabid Sasquatches. That's an interesting idea. I guess I'd never thought about that. Could they be exposed to rabies? Well, why not? Everything, even bats and dogs and cats and everything that gets bit by rabies. I don't think other than what is it? Other than what the hell? Possums. Possums, I guess, are pretty much immune to rabies, but everything else doesn't seem to be so fortunate. I don't know what it is about possums that make them immune to it, but I think it's very possible that that could be the case too. Maybe of course, rabies is a virus that attacks the brain, and perhaps it creates these terrible monsters. That's a good point, Android. Very, very good point. I'd never considered that ever. But yeah, that's completely possible, I guess. Possums got the scariest mouth. They do. Possums, they're an incredibly beneficial animal though to have around. They are pretty much immune to rabies, so you don't ever have to worry about them being rabid. They eat ticks, they eat wasps, they eat just tons of stuff that we don't like. And so they're actually an extraordinarily beneficial animal to have around, and generally they're non-aggressive. They don't go out of their way to be aggressive towards people. You can nearly go up and just pick up an adult one. I wouldn't suggest it. I'm not advising, but I had one show up at my doorstep back when I was still in Minnesota, and it was just laying there. It was getting cold. It was getting to be fall, and I was like, oh man, what's he doing here? This is not a good place. So put on a leather glove, picked him up, and walked him up into the bluff, and let him go up in the wilderness. And I hope he figured it out. But I certainly didn't bring him inside or anything. I didn't know that much about possums back then. Android, really, I had no idea possums had an immunity. We should study them. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they almost are. I don't believe they can get rabies, or they are extraordinarily naturally resilient to it at any rate. But yeah, you can look it up. I usually have some kind of basis for my claims that I make on the show. It's not usually off the hip making stuff up. So Can you eat them? No. You know what? Here's the thing. I've heard that they taste terrible. I've heard that possum tastes terrible. Like that most people don't bother hunting them because it's a very greasy, horrible food, apparently. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard. So that's why people don't hunt them. Like people hunt raccoons, they hunt squirrels, they hunt a lot of things, but they don't bother with possums. And really, possums would probably be the easiest thing to hunt because you see them, you get close to them, and they do what? They play possum. They play dead. So it's like they're very easy to prey on. But I guess the meat is terrible, is what I've heard. So don't know if that's true, but maybe it is. Maybe it's like eating a giant rat. Maybe. Could be, Android. That's a good point. So, yeah, the possums are great to have around. They love ticks. They eat the hell out of ticks. So if you don't like ticks, get yourself some possums. They'll clean them out. All right. Anything else in the chat? Am I missing anything else? Had one growl at me at night. Almost dutied. What growled at you? A possum? They do look like giant rats. You're right, Ghost Magnet. They do. Yeah. I don't know, but it seems like there's giant rats appearing everywhere. We just talked about in an archived news yesterday that Iran is back in 2012 was hiring snipers to go out and get them at night. So they're poisoning them during the day, and they're hiring snipers because they've been exposed to so much radioactivity and chemicals from a lot of testing going on there that they have these enormous house cat sized rats over in Iran. So there's apparently more rats in Tehran than there are people, is what that report was saying. So they hire people to go out and hunt them at night. I don't know. And if they're probably not good eating either. Probably. Just saying. That was weird. That was like a interference in my headphone, but a little black dot went past like a bug maybe. Maybe it was a fly. Maybe it was close enough to the microphone to pick up the wings. It was like that. So could be. All right. So that's another one. Let's see if there's another one on here. I thought there was a few. Here's one. This is one I didn't want to read. Does Bigfoot ever attack people? This one might be good. I know we talk about this. Let me check the time. We got literally 3 minutes, so there's not probably enough time to dive into this part of the story, but let me pull up the chat again so I can see if I'm missing anything. There it is. My computer's getting laggier and laggier, folks. I got to clean this baby out. Even the hard drive's getting full. Tell you what, I've been using this computer for years. Dad said he could eat possum. He'd never learned to like it. Yeah, I mean, you could eat them. I'm sure you could, stay alive eating them, but it doesn't sound like anyone enjoys eating them too much. It's not. But then again, I've heard there's recipes that maybe make it work. I don't know. I think you really gotta like spicy food in order to make that meat taste good, though, because you've got to kill it with fire in a traditional sense of extraordinary spice. Maybe, I don't know. I wonder what they taste like. I don't know what they taste like, but I think they're a sweet animal personally. So I'm not real motivated to try a bite. I think that they're good to have around. And God, I think the possum's biggest enemy in nature is probably the car. I don't know why these things can't. Well, I suppose they see a car coming. What do? They play dead, and then they get dead. It's the worst adaptation in natural selection ever. It's like, well, it works for everything else. Here comes a car. Let me play dead. Now, how about you move? How about you just get off the road? But they play dead, and then they get dead because the cars run over them. I've heard that they have lower body temp, so rabies can't not incubate in their blood. Maybe that's what it is, Rachel. That's a good point. I didn't really know why they're resistant to it. Well, there you go, Android. Maybe that's what they've studied and found out, is that their body temperature is too low, so that it doesn't incubate. It just dies out. It's much like lice. Lice can be epidemic, but if you're going through your kid's hair looking for lice, if they got lice eggs on the end of their hair, you don't really have to worry about it because it has to be right next to the scalp in order to incubate. And so those are the ones you need to get. So, and I don't know why I know that. I've never had lice, or any of my kids have never had lice, but just one of those things I picked up through the years. But, and mostly in the back of the head. I guess that's the warmest part for whatever reason. Maybe it's because the blood flow is so going down near the spine or something. I don't know. I have no idea. That I am kind of making up. I'm just trying to figure out why. But, let's see. So if you get rabies, run for the freezer. Maybe that's the key, Brooks. Good points. All right, we're going to go to the hour break, folks. We'll get back into more of this when we come back, so don't go away for more of the Paranormal Portal.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, ripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. Finished with my silence. I am not a stupid toy. No more breaking me with kindness. Just you dance upon my joy. Leading me with empty promise. You're just another fucking gas. Taking off the slice of my sanity. Just make sure that you're well fed. Yeah.
Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that's different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
I told you we'd be back. Here we are. I'm a man of my word, folks. I'm a man of my word. We've been talking about... Actually, we were talking about Bigfoot for the most part, but we've talked about a lot of things here on the portal. And it's all on the table as long as it's paranormal, because that's where we live. We live in the paranormal. The world is paranormal. Ghost Magnet says, last night driving home from my land in Oklahoma, I was listening to your show, and that when that song came on, I cranked it up and had a little Audi TT with the Bose speakers, and it was awesome. Oh, cool. Thank you, man. That's great. I appreciate that a bunch. I again, it was never an ego play, but I'm really glad that the music is reaching some people and you guys enjoy it. I get rarely, but I get hate messages about it. So, and it's okay. I know no music appeals to everybody, so that's just the way it goes. But yeah, I appreciate hearing that. Thank you very much. We are talking right now about a poll. I mean, it's kind of a random poll on this. I don't really understand Quora too much because it seems like really sporadic, but with a bunch of threads on a given thread, so you never know what you're getting. But I just found this little segment in that article we've been covering, and the covering is, have you ever had an experience that made you believe in Bigfoot on Quora? Quora. But this one is, does Bigfoot ever attack people? I thought, oof. Well, like it or not, there are reports that suggest that there is an aggressive side to Bigfoot. We don't understand what is propagating these. Perhaps there's a whole history of bad blood between a given population and their neighborhood Sasquatch. It's hard to say. I know there are plenty of histories of the First Nations having battles with them. Usually they try to respect and avoid them and give them their own space, but when things go bad, they go all kinds of bad, and including some of these histories suggest that children and women were taken from villages by these creatures and never seen again. So, it's hard to say. I'd like to think that they're potentially these wonderful creatures living in the woodlands that are, wise and helpful and all of those things. But then there's this other side of history and even modern claims that suggest there's a very aggressive side to them as well. I do believe, again, just to be a little bit redundant about this, but I do believe that they probably have a behavioral diversity similar to ours. There are most people that are just fine. They don't want trouble. They just like to live peacefully. They don't go out of their way to cause troubles for anybody else. They just kind of do their thing. I think for the most part, that's the Sasquatch community. But there are also people that seem to thrive on victimizing people and causing pain and problems for people. And perhaps the same is true to these things, these beings, that they have some parts of their species that are not so nice. And maybe that's based on a lot of history of conflict with people. It's hard to know, but there are claims about this. Ghost Magnet says, I've been listening to Sasquatch Chronicles all day from the beginning And I've been talking, and they've been talking about them eating people and catching children and women especially. Yeah. I mean, Tom Seawood, who's been on the podcast, the Paranormal Portal podcast, first heard of him from Sasquatch Chronicles, and there's lots of stories of their Zonokwa living up in the mountain that would come with a basket on her back and would take children that weren't in the village and put them in the basket and carry them away. I mean, these are legends. Are they folklore? Maybe, but there might be some precedent for this folklore, and we just don't know. So, I think it could go both ways, and perhaps again, it speaks to the intelligence of these beings that they have this whole spectrum of behavior, and they're not just hot or cold. Like, there's individuals and there's individual issues perhaps. So let's read this and see what it says. In the 1920s, Okfuskee County, Oklahoma, a Creek Indian man was found dead by a party of fellow tribal members and non-Indian members of the community. The man was found with legs drawn up, hands folded under his head. A difference of opinion arose in which some members of the party contended that the man was in deep pain when he died, and some thought he died praying. That question was never solved, and even after an autopsy determined that the man died of a brutal beating. Could the man have been in pain and been praying as he died? No one really knows. But what was disturbing is the area around the man's body was replete with huge footprints and handprints, as well as indications of a struggle, and it was known at the time that large hairy creatures lived in the area. Old people said that the creatures left the area sometime not too long after this incident. And if I have my timeline correct, the Creeks have a word for the very large creatures. Apparently, my grandfather, a Baptist lay preacher, was in the party that found the man and could have been one of the men armed with his flintlock musket, detailed to stand guard over the body while the others went for the county sheriff. I've seen that musket. So quite possibly Bigfoots do attack and perhaps brutally kill humans. And not to be forgotten there are also other accounts of Indian people who have knowledge of Bigfoots that have protected human children and have returned human children to their families or their villages. Some accounts of Indian children playing with Bigfoot youngers exist in the oral histories of some Indian communities or tribes. But to the matter of the creatures attacking and killing humans, a Google search of Bigfoot attacks on humans reveals some frightening accounts of the creatures doing exactly that. I won't take time to review some of those stories or accounts here. I heard some weird noise. I believe it is much more revealing for a person to perform his or her own research. Search the terms Bigfoot attacks or do Bigfoots kill human beings. Generally, Indian or non-Indian accounts of the Bigfoot attacks exist. On the other hand, I have a friend who lives in California who tells me that she and her human neighbors frequently see the creatures in the area, and her attitude is simply, we don't bother them and they don't bother us. So as the late and beloved Arizona Bigfoot researcher Mitchell Waite, whose video on YouTube exists in which he spent the night in a trailer in his research area during which something rattled the door latch of the trailer, said, it depends on your Bigfoot. Amateur Bigfoot researchers have tried to categorize Bigfoots in their non-scientific classifications. They try to set up, without a scientific taxonomy, groupings according to similarities in appearance. For example, the website Bigfoot 411 sets out 4 types, plus the frightening Janoskwa and the skunk ape Bigfoot types. There's a link here as well. I guess I could pull that up, and we'll see what it says. On the other hand, a YouTube video researcher sets out as many as 10 different types. There are 2 last things, both of them disturbing. In southern Oklahoma and Choctaw country, a frightening story is told of an 1855 battle between the Choctaw Light Horsemen, a group of lawmen who answered to the Choctaw court, and a group of large man-eating creatures. The story is told in various places on the internet. The problem is the story may be fiction. I've tried to chase it down for inclusion in a novel I wrote. On the one hand, the official Choctaw Nation seems to know nothing about it, and on the other hand, I've spoken to workaday Choctaw people who say they can drive you to the exact spot. And on another hand, a third hand as it were, I have run into information that says the battle actually took place across the state, with the Kiowas battling the man-eating creatures. So you'll have to decide for yourself if the account is factual or is based on the publication of the story in a fiction magazine, as some say. Then finally, there is this podcast from Sasquatch Chronicles. The guest tells of finds of piles of bones in which there seem to be human bones as well. The bone piles are thought to be left by Bigfoot. The guest looms a controversial question about why an internationally known researcher of missing persons, Mr. David Paulides, has not been forthcoming in discussing whether or not the alleged human remains might be some of those who've gone missing. And it's episode 475, Terror in the Woods. So my grandfather may have indeed witnessed the aftermath of a Bigfoot attack on a human, but there were other instances in my family of other Bigfoot encounters. I'm just fortunate that no one in my family ever suffered such a fate. That's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's so many great stories and encounters that people share on Sasquatch Chronicles. It's just such a wealth of information. So, if you haven't already looked into Sasquatch Chronicles and you're interested in learning more about what behaviors Bigfoot may exhibit, that's a great resource. I really enjoy it. It was a formative show in my developing the Paranormal Portal. I mean, I sat for literally years listening to Sasquatch Chronicles as I was working away in a cubicle on several different things, advertising and web development and stuff. So it was like, it got me through for a long time, but it became in many ways my impetus for wanting to do a show myself. Here's the Bigfoot 411. These are the 4 alleged type, and it claims type 1 is patty-like with flat teeth. Type 2 is chimp-like with canine teeth. Type 3 is the snout or muzzle, and that's much like the beast of 7 shoots or whatever. Looks kind of like a baboon. And type 4 is like a relict hominid. Now, I don't know. Here's the thing with this stuff. Could it be biodiversity? Again, I don't know that there's more types or not. I really don't know. It's possible. It's possible there are. But it's also possible that they just have as much biodiversity in their appearance as we do as people. And perhaps they're, if you put a group of people, and separated them by height and by specific characteristics, it would look like there were certain types of humans. But we're all just human beings. And can be, and I'm not speaking of racial identity at all. I'm just speaking of, tall people versus shorter people. They're still just people. They're just a biodiversity. There's some people grow big. Some people don't grow big. Some people in tall families don't grow as tall as everyone else, but that doesn't classify them as something different. So I don't know if that's a responsible thing to do, but again, they could be right. Could there be this tree of different types of these relict hominids, that whether that's Bigfoot or an ape, whatever, but could there be that diversity of cousins, like different cousins that managed to survive for this time? I don't know. I really don't know, but it's anybody's guess. I've heard lots of distinctions about them behaviorally, like the southern Squatches are more aggressive than the Pacific Northwest ones and the northern ones. And maybe that's true because they're so, in much closer proximity to people more often that they act more aggressively. I don't know. It's anybody's guess, but these, the 4 types have been around a long time, and truth be known, it's anybody's guess. It really is. I think it's just really premature to try to draw such distinctions based on a very limited body of knowledge that we have, because as Wes says, no one's got one in the garage that they're studying. We just don't know. But I will tell you that I think that, and I said it last night as well, that I think that through the number of experiences and reports that people have been able to give of their experiences, you can truly glean a behavioral model of these creatures to a degree. I wouldn't trust your life on it, but I think it does give us the possibility to understand some motivators, what was going on in a certain circumstance. But it is interesting also to hear that, some people are pounded into pretzels by these things, and other people are led back to their village. There's like this helpful type, and then there's this other type that would just as soon stomp you into pudding than look at you. And that's why I think there's just such a behavioral barometer in these things. It's not just one size fits all. So just very interesting. And again, let's see. Ghost Magnet says, my land is part of the Choctaw Reservation, and my grandmother, full-blooded Choctaw, used to talk about the boogeyman, and the Choctaw Nation does know about Bigfoot. Okay, very cool. Yeah, I believe most tribal nations have some reference to them, and that doesn't surprise me at all. I think that the First Nations people have been sharing land with these things for thousands of years. There are talks of trading going on between Bigfoots like creatures and the First Nations tribes in certain areas. So it does seem to represent at least a cooperation. I know most tribes have areas that they don't go into for some reason. And sometimes to me it seems like it's probably because they knew that that's where these things generally were. And so they'd stay out in a respectful way, and not maybe fearful way as well. But, again, we don't really know enough. There's a lot of people making some really huge claims about these things when we really don't have much to go on other than, some anecdotal evidence. But Rachel says, I wonder if anyone has filtered all the sightings through an AI to see what information comes together from that. Not that I know of. It would be interesting to hear what could be gleaned from that by some other, looking at it from, a million different ways, perhaps. Where's Don Longbeard? Don's usually here on Fridays, Drew. Don is here on Wednesday and Friday nights. So on Saturdays, it's just me. Hope that's okay. I hope so. But yeah, I'm the one here tonight. So we got about 8 minutes until the break. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you think that there are several types of Bigfoots, individual, like biologically distinct types? Or do you think that maybe there's just one type? I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts because, I don't pretend to be able to speak with any kind of authority. It's just the idea that there just seems to be, these things seem to be very intelligent. They seem to be capable of a lot of diversity, behavioral and anatomical, biological diversity. So maybe it's just one family. Maybe it's not. What else is on here, by the way? Consider this. Mountain gorilla's average home range is 8 miles squared. Neanderthal average home range was 20 miles squared. Grizzly, his average home range is 160 miles squared. Hypothetical, if a troop of 4 Bigfoot need a home range comparable to a grizzly bear's, then a country like the U.S. with 2.3 million miles squared of undeveloped mountain and forest land would have enough land for 14,375 troops. That's 57,500 Bigfoot. Again, there's a lot of supposition going on there. The other part of it is I think we as a people are a very wasteful people. And I think that we may have caused a population boom in these creatures because we throw a lot of things away. Is it possible that they breed according to the availability of resources? And if they do, if they're just living solely off of the scrubland, which is the mountain ranges, the swamps, the pretty much the places where we generally don't go often. So if they're scrubbing out an existence on just that, then I think, yeah, a limited population makes sense. But is it possible that through the development of us, the amount of things that we throw away, including foods, which by and large are very, still very edible, they're just not within our range of edible, could those living towards the societies that we formed be able to possibly create more offspring because of there's so much more resources agriculturally, through farmlands and developments like that, not to mention the removal of so many natural predators in the U.S. has caused an absolute explosion of things like deer and other ungulates that used to be balanced by having to compete with lots of prey animals, which are no longer present in a lot of the U.S. So the impact of us may have given them an opportunity to have more offspring just because the resources are so much more plentiful because of our presence, maybe not always in a good way, but through our presence, there's not mountain lions everywhere and grizzly bears everywhere and taking down the ungulates and such that in the degree that they used to. So there's, there's culling of deer herds going on in some places just because of the overpopulation. So could that give rise to more natural predators, possibly like a Bigfoot, which we believe has a very omnivorous type of diet where they eat both plants, vegetables, fruits, and meats. So I don't know. It's hard to say. But more and more I hear reports that people are seeing these things in very surprising places. They see them in very urban areas, not necessarily big cities, but on the fringes, in suburban areas where you wouldn't expect to see something like a Bigfoot. There are reports. I've heard reports come from people saying that in derelict housing in Detroit, there was a claim that there was possibly a Bigfoot living in there or some Bigfoot. So is it possible that they are that they're not quite as skittish and far away from us as we think? Perhaps they're managing to survive right on the fringes of our society and reaping the benefits of our wasteful ways. And maybe that's one thing, and maybe there's more going on here. But just some thoughts. Again, nothing I could substantiate in any way, but it's often occurred to me that either the uptick in reporting is because people are able to talk about this stuff so much more than ever before in our history, or that there's actually more of these things around. And maybe it's a combination of both. And if there's more of them around, it's because they're able to survive, within our realm of where we exist. Maggie M10, but we have the Junjadi and the Dulagal, and they are known separate species. I think so too. I don't mean to imply that on the face of the earth there's only Bigfoots and there's nothing else. I believe that there are. In Indonesia, it's the orang pendek. Orang is Indonesia for a people, and pendek means small, so small people. And so is that some form of undiscovered orangutan, or is that possibly a reference to surviving examples of the Homo floresiensis, however you say that, the hobbits that were discovered, the remains of hobbits that were discovered in Indonesia? Could those be the orang pendek? It's anybody's guess. Interestingly enough, orangutans, orang is people and utan is forest. So orangutans are basically people of the forest in traditional Indonesian language. So it's very interesting. But yeah, I think there are many. There are other things around, but I'm speaking in terms of the Bigfoot, these large, hairy, humanoid-looking creatures. Are there different types of those, or like the yowie? The yowie I think is very much like a Bigfoot, just separated through the ages. But I think they're pretty much the same thing, or at least have a common ancestor to our Bigfoot. But the Junjidi, I think, is something completely different, you know. So there are other things out there. I don't mean to imply that it's just Bigfoot or nothing. I think there's dogmen out there. I think there's Bigfoot. I think that there's some areas have these, I think they're called albatawitch. They're like a monkey, a fierce monkey type of being that lives. And there's a mountain in Montana where they're, according to them, some local customs from the First Nations, they're these horribly ferocious little ape things that live there, like monkey size things. And so I don't know, whatever the case is. But yeah, I think there's a biodiversity. Rachel says they may use waterways, rivers, the cities to travel. Yes, I think they do. Absolutely. They have been very closely, wherever you're sighting Bigfoot is usually close to a waterway. But we're going to go to the last break. We'll be right back for more of the Paranormal Portal. right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the last half hour of the show. My God, it's gone fast. Remember, the phone lines are open if you want to call in, but if not, I'll just continue to roll because I got a couple of cool reports we want to get to now, and we'll get to them now. I want to get to them now, and we'll get to them now. How'd that go? All right, so the first one I want to get to is from Sasquatch Chronicles blog. I know a lot of you guys are familiar with Sasquatch Chronicles. Obviously, it's an amazing show, a great opportunity and place to listen to actual reports of people coming in contact with Bigfoot and Sasquatch and other things. But also the website, SasquatchChronicles.com, is a great site to check out a whole bunch of more information on the blog there. There's just great postings and supplemental information. So call when you get, I called when you get a chance. You called when, I guess we do got a call. So before we go to that, let's get to the call and find out what in God's name is going on here. This is, of course, Android. Are you there? Are you there?
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, it's Android. How's it going?
I'm doing good, brother. How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, man. I just told you the other day, just checking up with you, that nothing had happened since that original report. And, I must have jinxed myself because literally the next day on Thursday, something kind of really strange happened. I'm not sure if it was paranormal, but, okay. I'm not sure if one of the two of the things was paranormal, but if for anybody that's not familiar, I think it was May 9th I called back. You can go back and listen to that show to hear how it all started. But I was just walking downstairs Thursday after my shower, and I had a speaker. I was holding actually a portable Bluetooth speaker in my hand, playing a podcast, and I had it pretty loud. And when I got to the bottom of my stairs, I heard what sounded. I mean, it was clear. It was so loud. There was no question about it. It sounded like a mix between. At first, it sounded like a growl, and then I thought it was. It's just a motorcycle in the distance going by outside. It was a low, like, rumble. Uh-huh. And it was long and like 3-4 seconds. It lasted a while. And then I didn't hear it again after that. And I was like, it's probably, a car or a, motorcycle in the distance. And it was hard to tell really because my speaker was on and I didn't pause it in time to hear what it was, but it was clearly something audible. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even have called and mentioned that if this didn't happen right after it. I walked into the kitchen and was filling my glass with water, and I thought I seen something out of the peripheral vision of my right eye, and I looked over, and as I'm standing there, I see the shadow of this like little circle, I don't know, maybe a little smaller than a volleyball on the ground. So I didn't have the kitchen light on. I just had my hallway light on because my kitchen light's actually kind of broken right now. Okay. And so I just turned on the hallway light, and it casts a light rectangle onto the floor. And right in that rectangle of light, that beam that's beaming on the ground, right smack almost in the center of it, was this little circle shadow. And it wasn't like a perfect circle. It was like, kind of fluid around the edges, almost if it was like a, I don't know, like a jellyfish or something, and at the bottom it had a little protrusion. It looked like a little tie of a bottom that you would see on the bottom of a balloon or something. And it was floating, or it was moving away from me on the ground. And I realized, that's something behind me on the other side in the air, floating up in the air. And it's weird. The shadow was kind of dim. It wasn't like a dark shadow. Okay. It was almost like if it was like light shining through a gas or something like that, so like some light was getting through. Okay. And I turned around, and right before I turned around, it just faded right in front of my eyes. The shadow just faded. It didn't move off to the side, it just faded. And I turned around, nothing was there. Yikes. And I was like, I hope that really was still a motorcycle before I saw that, or maybe it was just coincidence those two things happened back to back. But
yeah, it might be. I mean, it's hard to correlate them for certain, but the fact that they did happen back to back definitely leads you to believe, it must have been something. But maybe it wasn't a growl. Maybe it was just, I don't know. When things manifest, sometimes people say that there's a sound that can be attached to that. I mean, it's not always just this deathly quiet, boom, it's there, boom, it's not. Sometimes people hear pops or the sound of like cellophane, that kind of thing.
Oh my God. You're giving me chills now because I didn't tell you yet. I wasn't done telling what happened, but you literally just said something that happened after. So as we discussed before, I told you, I said I haven't really spoke out against it because I wanted to make sure it was here.
Yeah.
If I did that,
sure.
To hear it. And so it happened this time. Once I saw that shadow, I said, okay, this is, my chance. It's probably here, whatever this thing is, to say, hey, this is my house. You need to get out. And if you are going to stay here, you should you should not follow me around. You should not be in the same room with me in any situation. That's just the way it's going to be. Right. I said a couple short religious, statements and just saying,
mm-hmm.
I believe in God, that kind of stuff,
right.
and telling them, I'm a religious person kind of thing, and to make them realize, I'm not going to just, kind of deal with it. And
right.
Soon as I said that, I heard what sounded like plastic, like cellophane or plastic covering of you would get in a package,
right?
Crinkled, for 2 seconds, and I thought, oh, my cat's getting into something, and I went around the corner and she was not there. I went upstairs. She was upstairs asleep.
Ooh, yeah.
Could have been. I've never heard of that plastic thing before. You said you've heard that before?
Oh yeah. I mean,
I've never heard of that.
The sounds attributed to that are not real common, but they do come up from time to time. And maybe that was it dissipating. Maybe that was the sound of it dissipating after you made that proclamation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, maybe it fades in and out of our reality.
Right.
It's kind of like it's letting off a spark of energy of some sort, and that's the sound that energy makes, or something.
Right. Yep. Or the transition of the energy moving back over to where it's supposed to be. It's anybody's guess, but yeah. So let's look at it that way until you know for sure it's still a problem. I just want to be optimistic about this for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because it had been over a month since anything had happened. I thought I just figured, okay, it's just a thing passing through. But now I'm starting to think, there is something hanging around. Hopefully that finally got rid of it, though. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, man, I tell you what, keep us posted, and by all means, if it continues to be a problem, let me know. Well, we can certainly put you in contact with some people that can help you clear it if it's not going away, based on what you're already doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate it, Brent.
Anytime, brother. Great to hear from you, Android. Thanks for calling in and being part of the show.
All right, thanks. Have a good one, brother.
Good night. I wanted to share this too, folks, and this is from Portal Mom. This is only those of you on YouTube are going to see this, but Portal Mom sent me a picture that she captured. Where the hell is it? Can you make it even clearer? Not really. It's kind of bright, isn't it? It's trying to zoom in or trying to capture it. It's a little brighter, I guess, than I thought it was going to be. There we go. That's a little better. But it's a possum she caught on her porch. I think this is from last winter here. So there you go, folks. That's from Portal Mom. She sent that because she heard me talking about the possum earlier in the show. But again, possums are a beneficial animal. So, all right. So we're going to get to this. Can you tell Bigfoot your limits like you can the spirits? Some people say you can. Some people say you can make proclamations religiously, like the power of Christ. You have to leave. I think, the question is, can they understand language? I don't know. There's reports of them mimicking language in many cases, of Bigfoot mimicking language, but can they understand language? Maybe. I don't know. I think it's possible. They appear to have a language of their own, but could they be able to decipher our language? And that's a great question. But I know people have claimed to make proclamations like, you need to leave, you cannot be here by the power of, insert religious symbol here, you need to go. And perhaps just by virtue of them being intelligent and maybe understanding what you mean, they stay away. Perhaps they are compelled to by a spiritual force. I don't know, and I don't pretend to be able to speak to that with any authority. But I'm just telling you that there are claims of people making proclamations to these things, and then them leaving, or at least not bothering them anymore. Is that because they understood? Anybody's guess. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they understood the energy that was being sent out. Like, now there is talk of mind speak, right? So if there's mind speak, then maybe it's not a matter of words, but they understand the emotional intelligence that you're sending out and are able to send emotional messages, energetic messages back to us that maybe our brain interprets with words. Maybe they do speak our language. I don't know. Linda Godfrey talked about a Bigfoot where she lives in Kettle Moraine area of Wisconsin. She was talking about basically her house and her neighbor's houses all are at the edge of this, what's called the reason they call it Kettle Moraine is because basically the land kind of drops into these kettle-like valleys, very steep edged, wooded areas that is a forest beneath them. And so the area is called Kettle Moraine, but her house is right on the edge of one of those. And, of which she also, has had plenty of sightings in that area of Bigfoot. And she said her neighbor would always, in the summer months, would always go out on her porch. And if someone called, she'd be, oh, hello, 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 like that. And that was just the way she answered the phone. And Linda said she was outside one time and down into the kettle in front of her, into this forested pit in the ground, a huge, forest underneath. She heard something going, oh, hello, 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 hello. Like it was mimicking her. Other people have heard the mimicking. They've heard the Bigfoot calling their pets. Come here, Spot. Come here, Spot. Like it's trying to call your pet out to the forest, which is creepy because, they're also believed to be responsible for taking a lot of people's pets. And they don't usually get along real well with dogs. And perhaps it's because dogs can really hear them coming and, raise an alarm, and that kind of gives away their things. But can they do that? Well, I think there's at least anecdotal evidence that maybe they understand something, but they do mimic. They are known to be mimics. So I don't know. It's interesting all the same. I guess since Wes is here, you could ask him. He'd be the best judge of that because he has talked to thousands of witnesses, literally. Do they understand language? But I don't know. Anybody's guess. But speaking of Sasquatch Chronicles, how you doing, Wes? Thanks for coming in tonight, brother. I'm going to read something from Sasquatch Chronicles blog. I'm totally using your site for material tonight, Wes, just so you know. This is from June 12th. It's relatively recent. And it's from the Sasquatch Chronicles blog. And let's get to this. Let me get it up on screen so you guys can see it. On June 12th, encounter on highway in Louisiana. A listener writes, on May of 2013, I got a place in Lafayette with my now wife. And that fall, I had to drive 3 hours north to my hometown for a dentist appointment scheduled for 8 a.m. While I was driving north with my cruise control set, following an older white sedan by about 4 seconds, listening to music and finally feeling awake from the coffee I just finished. I remember thinking to myself how the fog looks eerie as it was just beginning to barely glow in the early twilight. All of a sudden, I noticed that the car in front of me had slammed on their brakes hard and is rapidly approaching me. Well, I too brake hard while switching to the left lane to avoid hitting the white car. As I'm changing lanes, I see an enormous black figure stepping away from the road. I do not see any fine details as I'm traveling at interstate speed and avoiding a collision. But I do, however, excuse me. Sorry about that. I do, however, distinctly see the silhouette of a man with 2 legs, 2 arms, brown shoulders, and a head. And I at first assumed it to be a vagrant built like a linebacker in all black and walking south along the interstate, because what else could it be? And I still maintain that this crazy possibility is about as likely as actually seeing what my grandmother called a booger. This view is brief, and as I pass them, both the upper and lower parts of the figure disappear from the view of the passenger window, leaving only a solid black mass obscuring the view of the surrounding scene. Imagine passing a cyclist that you can see through the windshield. As you pass them, their image goes from the windshield to the smaller passenger window, and your view of their legs and the wheels are obstructed from view due to the dimensions of the window. This obstructed view was what I saw. As I pass this black figure, I also see that it is far past the white line of the road and is in fact past the shoulder and stepping into the grass, left foot forward and headed down the embankment away from the road. So they are in the grass and I am in the left lane, which puts it 20 to 30 feet away. And despite this distance, the majority of the figure disappears from my view, leaving only the solid black of its torso. I immediately realize this figure crossing the road is at least 8 feet tall, as it would have to be close to twice as tall as my car. It is also very wide since it takes up the entire view of the passenger window. This whole scene happened so fast, but I know what I saw. A very large black figure shaped like a man and close to twice as tall as my car that had just crossed the road in front of the car ahead of me. Wow. Yeah, it's got to be enormous, right? That is incredible. I don't know, man. Wow. These things are so big. That's the surprising part. And that's the part that really makes my head spin. And I know I've said it many times on the show, but what would that look like? And you can kind of get an idea of why people can be out in the woods and suddenly forget that they have a camera, or forget they have a gun. Because suddenly you're confronted with this sight that is so far out of our normal frame of reference. It's just giant. And it's standing there. And what does that mean? Well, it's got to be the most intimidating thing a person could see. Because you're looking at something that is so much bigger, so much stronger than we could ever hope to be. And it could kill you in a heartbeat. It could literally push you into pudding. And there's nothing you could do about it. I guess, except the only choice you have that time is how do you want to die? Because literally that's what you're confronting, is something that is so extraordinarily powerful that it could just end your existence in a heartbeat. So no wonder people don't think of taking a photo. They don't think of drawing a gun. And if they do have a gun, if they think of it, they're thinking, I don't want to make it mad. It's not that, hey, I'm going to blast this thing. It's like, oh my God, this thing is so big that all I'm going to do is piss it off. That is horrifying. That is truly, truly horrifying. So, and this guy was way across the road seeing it disappear and then realized, wait, it's way over there. How big is this? Oh, that's incredible. And again, the claims of people having them see them, even being in a car, they feel absolutely helpless because they know that whatever this thing is strong enough to rip their car apart. Usually you see like a bear, it's like, well, we're inside the car, we should be okay. Like a bear could attack your car and it could wreck it eventually, but it's not going to peel the top off like a banana, but something this big could literally do that. So I don't know. It's a whole different animal. There's another one here on Sasquatch Chronicles blog that I wanted to touch base on, and this is from June 7th. Again, Sasquatch Chronicles blog, June 7th. It made me nervous. A listener writes, I live in Washington State in the Graham-Eatonville area, and I had property here and have trampled through the woods many times. My husband and brother are avid hunters, so I'm familiar with the sounds of different animals tramping in the woods as well as their noises. They, along with my oldest son, actually had an experience several years ago while hunting. Something was throwing small rocks at them. They don't know what or where they came from. Backstory from last weekend. My daughter and I drive to Columbia Falls, Montana, for her best friend's wedding. It was held at a place called North 40 Resort, which is basically a bunch of little individual cabins in the woods, with a venue towards the front of the property. And our cabin was at the very end of the resort. I love the outdoors, so I was really excited. Upon check-in, we're told that there had been a baby bear spotted several times and they hadn't seen the mama for about 3 weeks. They gave us a can of bear spray. We weren't too nervous about that. We just knew to be aware. We had just unloaded our suitcases from the trunk, and sure as hell, that baby bear, probably 1 to 2 years old, was right next to our cabin about 5 feet up a tree. What a cool experience. He came down fairly quickly and ran off into a clearing a little ways behind our cabin. Right away, we let the owner know as he'd asked, and the owner came down but never saw it. So we arrived Friday and we're planning on leaving Sunday. I smoke, and Friday night I had no fear of being out in our little porch in the dark smoking and just sitting and relishing the environment. I did have my bear spray, but I knew I would hear a bear coming through the woods. My daughter hung out with her best friend that evening at a campfire down the road with her best friend and her fiance Friday night and Saturday night. So I was alone at the cabin for the better part of both evenings. Saturday night is where I had the experience that I just kind of shrugged off at first, but have had a couple of people jokingly tell me it was probably a Bigfoot. Now I wonder. So I went outside the cabin to have a smoke at about 9:30 p.m. and called my husband to talk with him. I had a bear spray, of course. Almost right away, I heard a rustling in the bushes near where we saw the baby bear on the side of the cabin. I knew it wasn't the bear because the rustling sounded bigger and just like something busted through a bush. It made me nervous, and I told my husband to mute himself so I could hear better. The only thing I could hear was eerie silence. I was still on the phone with my hubby and then heard all I can describe it as was 2 rocks clacking together. Clack, clack, clack. 3 times. I was even more nervous because, again, it sounded like it was coming from the backside of the cabin where we saw the baby bear. I asked my husband to mute again, and again, all I could hear was eerie silence. I could hear no noises. I told my husband I was super nervous and didn't understand why. I again heard clacking or popping sounds. This time it was maybe 4 or 5, and I asked him again to mute. And then I actually did hear it again, but this time I thought it sounded like maybe fireworks or something off in the distance. By this time I was super nervous. I think I had gone in and out of the cabin about 3 times talking to my husband. I never did finish the whole cigarette. I hung up with him and went about my business in the cabin, tried to go back out again and couldn't help but feeling like I was being watched. I can't explain it. I've been in the woods a lot, and I've never felt this way. I took a couple puffs off of a cigarette and went back inside. I tried going out again about 10 minutes later, and in the front of the cabin there was a small stand of fir trees, maybe 3 to 5, and some brush around them. And I was sitting there, and I swear to God, I saw eyes shine in those trees. I looked again to see if I could see it with my flashlight on my phone, and I couldn't see anything. I figured it was just my imagination because I felt so nervous and like I was being watched, and I just felt like I was in imminent danger for some reason. I went back into the cabin and told my daughter to call me when she was coming back from the campfire so I could just drive down and get her instead of her walking back because of the noises that I heard. I did tell her that I thought it was a bear, even though I really didn't feel that it was. I kept trying to go outside and have that cigarette, but I couldn't stand the way it felt. Nervous, like I was being watched. The night air was so silent, not like normal. I went back inside and closed all of the curtains in the cabin. I went outside yet again and called my husband again. I tried to have a whole cigarette, but felt too nervous and went back inside. He laughed and told me maybe it was a Sasquatch, and I laughed it off. My daughter called, so I hung up to grab it, and her best friend and now husband were driving her back to the cabin, so I didn't have to go get her. When they came in, I was telling them what I heard, and Bradley, her best friend's husband, laughed and said maybe it was a Bigfoot. I really just kind of laughed it off again. My daughter and I tried to sleep that night, although we felt nervous. An umbrella fell inside the cabin right before we were getting into bed, and I about came unglued and So did my daughter. So the next morning, Sunday, we started our trek home to Washington, which is about 8.5 to 9 hours. We started talking about the experience the night before and what it could have been. We started talking about Bigfoot. She started researching and found out there have been sightings in Columbia Falls, Montana that made my eyes get big. She said, then researched rock clacking, as it's called, and found that they did clack rocks together or something to that effect. It gave me goosebumps. There you go, folks. That's going to wrap up the show. Thank you all for being here. Good night. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Remember, we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Good night, everybody.
Censorship and regulation is becoming an